So I have a few questions for you. The first one is, how did you learn to love yourself? After going through a life where you felt like you were not lovable, like you were not worthy, how did you manage to re-identify with yourself and love yourself without turning bitter?
When it comes to love and exploring or discovering love, there's definitely bitterness around that. And when it comes to the statement of re-identify with myself, I actually had to identify myself because I was raised in a household where I had no personhood. I wasn't recognized as a human being, basically, is what it felt like. And I undertook a journey, and I'm still kind of wrapping that material together of what I've learned of how vast an identity is, what exactly is an identity, and supporting people on pulling those aspects of themselves together to recognize themselves. And when it comes to meditation, then you can just ditch it all. But the beginning portions of that I've published so far are the 4 aspects of identity, which once again is on my blog, obscurum.com, and I'll post a link below if anybody's curious about that. Coming back to love and self-love, first things first is identifying what is love and really exploring that force. In the American language, there is only one word to encompass such an extreme variety of expressions, of energetic forces, of different aspects or different facets of this thing that we call love. So on one hand, growing up in a Christian household, there is God is love. What does that mean? Instructions are vague. And looking at Christianity within the American paradigm, it's not loving at all. It doesn't express love. It doesn't encourage people to love. The instructions are vague. And so I feel a lot of people, and I noticed I myself, just kind of skirted over this thing, ignored it, was hostile to it, and just, well, hostile to aspects of it. But overall, I came to the realization around college time that I had no idea what love is, what it really means. And even with divorce pending, we were with a therapist, and that therapist turned to me and asked me, like in front of the ex, do you love him? Now, the messed up thing was that the ex was already having affairs at that point and probably had multiple affairs throughout the marriage. And I was like, I don't know. I couldn't really answer the question, and obviously not in front of him. The therapist had already chided me on some things like attributing proper meanings to words. And I said, there's a dictionary for a reason. And she got on my case about that. So I didn't feel like it was a safe space to really express what I was thinking or feeling. But what came out was, yeah, I guess, but I don't love the way that I'm being treated. Initially, the journey starting in college, Eric Fromm's book, The Art of Loving, was one of the books that I happened to come across. And I didn't really understand much of it at that time. It was kind of just like, okay, well, this is interesting, whatever type of thing. But I just reread that book this year, and much more came through for me with it. So to kind of bring more of a definite answer, love is a constant exploration. And there are different phases and stages of coming to terms with this force, this word, these vague instructions, vague understandings, hormonal cocktail that are all kind of encompassed under this single banner of love. And really, there's been different levels to it and understanding these different aspects as I go along. And that, started with the hormonal cocktail, which I think is a space that we all tend to start with, since love isn't a well discussed or really open topic in American culture. And the next progress is sorting out the after effects of that hormonal cocktail leaving a relationship. And what do things get to look like? How do you rekindle the love? How do you stay committed within that relationship? And then comes unconditional love with a child. And it's really tough to understand unconditionality without having a child. But even with a child, people still don't get it. And then loving myself really came clear and came concrete through the process of divorce. And even after that, I had to learn to connect with myself. I had to take alone time, cut off all external stimulus to really be in silence and stillness and to really see myself without any sort of influence. So that is like a total isolation dynamic that happened pre-pandemic. And then through all of my failures, all of the ups and downs, especially at the down points, to really still value and appreciate myself, to really understand what it takes to love myself, even when I am not at my best self. And then it comes to really continually considering, is this self-love or is it me trying to protect myself from things? So at aspects when I choose myself or I get to choose myself, it's always that question of, okay, what is really happening here? Am I actually choosing to love myself, or am I doing too much for someone, which is absolving myself and choosing them over me? So it's constantly this balancing act is the best way I can say it. But it was definitely a process and a lifetime progress.